morning, Common Ground. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We invite you to worship alongside us today. Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings. Who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, who leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order, who makes the orphan a son and daughter, the King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
Good morning, church. Thank you so much for being with us today. As always, I look forward to these moments to have with you, whether you're joining us from home or maybe you're joining us with a portable device and you're out and about. I just am thankful that you take the time with us each Sunday to connect with God. Hey, if you were joining us before our worship session and then also this talk, you may have seen several slides of individuals, whether they're college students or high school students who are graduating. And if you saw those young people, today, the reason why we're showing those is today we're actually celebrating our graduates from college and from high school. And I just want to say to those that are graduating today, congratulations on your accomplishments. We are proud of you, and we are thankful and know that God has a plan and a blessing for you as you move forward into your next phase of life. Just continue to follow God in your next steps, and you won't go wrong. We are proud of you, and we are excited about your accomplishments. So today we are moving forward with our series that we started a number of weeks ago called Finding Peace. In this series, what we're looking towards is how do we find peace in our total being, despite our circumstances that are wrapped around us. How do we find a peace that is in every part of our being? And that means our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so far in this series, we have been looking at these different areas and how to find peace. And we've looked at peace of mind, we've looked at peace of heart, and today we're moving into another area that we want to pursue peace in, and that is peace of strength. Now, when I say that, it sounds really strange. I know that peace of strength, like what is that? What does strength and peace have in common? I mean, how do you have peace in your strongness? It's kind of weird. But what I want you to do is I want you to shift your thinking. For this to make sense, I want you to begin to think about strength as that which you put your energy towards as it relates to opportunities and your abilities, your giftings, the resources that you have. This is what it means to have a piece of strength, or to have strength in our life according to Jesus' affirmation of the greatest commandment. Look at what it says in Mark chapter 12, verse 30 through 31. When Jesus affirms the greatest commandment, he says this: love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your, what does it say? Strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. And so when we look at the word strength in the original language in this verse, it actually has this idea of it's a word that we would consider an augmenter. It has the idea of, like, if we were to say in a statement, that movie just wasn't good, that movie was very good. Very is an augmenter. That word is an influencing word to bring life to the next word. So this is how does this translate when it comes to Mark chapter 12 as it relates to strength? Well, this is how it applies. When we start thinking about our opportunities or our possibilities, the capabilities that God has given us, giftings, our influence, our resources, we need to ask ourselves, at what level am I magnifying, enhancing, augmenting, or amplifying these gifts, these influences, these opportunities, these strengths that I have in living out loving God and loving others? Because when you really think about that verse where Jesus gives us the greatest commandment, what we have there is a statement of our purpose. Like, our purpose really, according to that scripture, is loving God and loving others. And so we're to ask ourselves, how are we using our strengths towards that purpose? How are we magnifying our abilities to reach that purpose, loving God and loving others? Now, you might be asking, well, what does this have to do with peace? Well, I'm glad you asked. I mean, that's a great question. So when it comes to peace and strength, one of the things we need to realize is that as we pursue life, if we get off of our purpose, if we use our strengths and we magnify all the resources that have been given to us, our opportunities, our giftings, and we have done that in such a way that moves outside the purpose of God, we can wind up in a place where we realize all that I have done in life, or all that I have done up to this point, is really meaningless. It can come to like a meaningless understanding of where I've put my energy, my abilities. Actually, King Solomon mentions this misplaced focus on strength in Ecclesiastes 2:11. Listen to what he says. He says, "Yet when I surveyed all that my hand had done and what I had toiled to achieve," he's talking about toiling and working hard at it, everything was meaningless. A chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. So to come to a place like this, I mean, that's a hard blow to our peace. I mean, think about it. You have been giving your energy, your influence. You've been magnifying your gifts only to come to a place where you realize it's just a chasing after wind. It's just almost dissipated before you. I mean, when you come to this is a disheartening position in life. I mean, we've all heard of examples of those who have given their strength to come to a place of thinking, there's got to be more than this. Or to realize that you've traded your strength for something ultimately less, like you've given up your relationships, or you've given up investing in others. You've invested your total strength to magnify personal goals, and it just ends up being a chasing after the wind. You know, living in such a way to come to this realization, that's a peace drainer. It actually shows us that we really do not realize our peace yet in our life. So how do we pursue peace of strength that keeps us focused on what's important so that we actually end up into a place of peace in our life as it relates to our strength? Well, I want us to take a look at Psalm 90. Psalm 90 is the oldest recorded psalm, and it was actually written by Moses. And this is what we know about Moses' life. It was not an easy life. Moses lived to be 120 years old. His first 40 years was in Egypt. And that did not end well for him, where he had to flee Egypt because of a murder. And then he spent another 40 years as a shepherd. That's not an easy life. And then God called him when he was 80 years old to go free the Israelites from Egypt. And he did so only to lead the Israelites into the desert for another 40 years. I mean, he had a hard life. It was difficult. But this is what we find at the end of his life. Moses is called in Deuteronomy 33:1 the man of God. You know, Moses had faced all these difficulties in his life, but at the end of his life, he finished well. He finished living out his strength in such a way that he had peace at the end of his life. And so next week, we're going to actually get into Psalm 90, 13 through 17. I would ask you after today, would you just make that passage, would you meditate on that passage, make it that your devotional time so you're ready for next week. This morning, though, I want to focus in on Psalm 90, and I want to focus in on one verse. In Psalm 90, what we find is insights to living out our strength. But today, I just want to start with verse 12 as an overarching principle of what it takes to gain wisdom in finding peace of strength. So let me share what this verse says. It comes from the psalm written by Moses. Psalm 90:12 says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." So what does Moses ask God to do? As he's writing this psalm, he asks God to number his days. So let me say to you, one of the ways that you can find peace in your strength is to make this a practice in your life, that you number your days. Now, I know that sounds morbid. I mean, just thinking about how much time do I have left in life is basically what it's saying, like we're numbering our days. But what a great reminder in how we should be intentional with our strengths, how we should amplify our strengths in a right direction. Numbering our days helps us to realize that our time on earth is short. Like we only have so much time, and time is a precious commodity. How will we use our times to put our strength in a vital place? It's like this. If you were given a good sum of money, let's just say you were given $5,000 from an anonymous source. I mean, that'd be awesome, right? All of a sudden, $5,000 shows up into your banking account unexpectedly, and we're all like, yes, I have $5,000. Now, the total amount of that $5,000 is $5,000. Like it doesn't get higher than that, right? And so you're probably thinking, like, what am I going to do with this $5,000? Like, what is my next step? Well, you might think, well, I will go ahead and use some of that money. I'm going to go ahead and spend $2,000 and take a vacation. Well, after vacation, how much money do you have left? Everyone do the math. $3,000. You had $5,000, but now you have $3,000. What you just did is that you just counted the amount of money that you had. You counted your money and you begin thinking, okay, with the $3,000 left, what do I do with it? You only have a certain amount left. And money is a precious commodity. And so you begin to think, okay, what am I going to do to amplify or magnify the money that I have left to work best for me? You see, money is a precious commodity. You started out with a certain amount, $5,000. You're down to $3,000. You're counting it. And now you're trying to understand, how do I allocate for my best future using that money? You see, time works in a very similar manner. We only have so much time. It's a precious commodity, and once time is used, we don't get it back. And so with whatever we have left, we've got to consider, how do we use it in order to manage our strengths in such a way that it comes out in a good way in finding peace for our life. And it's in this regard as it relates to time, as time being a precious commodity, that I think many of us lose our peace. It's an area where time is not managed well, and we come to these places or these stagnation points where we say, did I really get to where I wanted to go as it relates to my strengths? Here's what I want to do. I want to give you 4 ways in which we can lose our sense, or our piece of strength can be stolen as it relates to time. And I want you to be thinking about, how should I be counting my days? But here's a piece of strength stealer number 1. One of the ways that we lose peace in our life is that we are extremely busy. Like today, many of us, we're slaves to the tyranny of the urgent. Like, we're constantly going. You know, many times when I ask people, where I see people, I say, hey, how are you doing? You know what one of the most common phrases I hear out of people's mouth? Oh man, I am so, you guys fill in the blank, I'm so busy. I'm guilty of that. People have asked me, I said, man, I just feel so busy. And I know that you've said the same thing, but this is true. I mean, we work long hours today. We give our time to trying to get ahead. Our work comes home with us. We have now our work on our phones, and we bring home our computers, and work doesn't just stop when we leave the office, but it's in our homes as well. We take more and more time to try to get ahead in our life, and so we give our time to our work. And then more and more, we actually add to our life because we are controllers maybe, or maybe we are people pleasers, and so we add more to our life, making ourselves busy. And then there's these other things, like we're always running to certain events. We're going to school events and work events and community events and game events, lots of events. And so we have figured out how to cram 25 hours into a 24-hour day. It's crazy. We're just totally bombarded with all the activity that's going on in our life. And I get it. I mean, as you think about our families today, the reality is families are just busy. But do you ever come to a place where you feel like you're just spinning out of control? You're just spinning your wheels, and your strength is just zapped. Like, you feel like you're missing out on life. Do you ever come to that point? This is what happened to Martha in the Bible. You know, when Jesus paid a visit to her household in the Bible, we find this story in Luke chapter 10, verses 40 through 42. This is what happens. It says that Martha was distracted by all the precautions that had to be made. She came to him, this is Jesus, and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. And look at what Jesus says. He says, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better. You see, Mary chose to dedicate her time to that which was truly important, Jesus. What I want to ask you right now is, what are you missing that's important? Because you are so busy that in your busyness, you're just missing out on the life that's right before you. It pays for us to consider stopping for a moment and to think about, am I spending my time in such a way that it's paying off to that which is most important? All right, so that's the first stealer. Here's strength stealer number 2. We waste time. And this peace stealer can really hit us unexpectedly. And as I get into this, I definitely want you to hear my point. I don't want it to sound like, as I get into this point, that I'm against recreation or a time to recharge. I mean, because we do need these times where we have recreation and we have these times where we check out for a bit in order to recharge and to rejuvenate. That's important to us in life. But it's so easy to waste time if we're not careful. I mean, and it can really hit us subtly. I want us to think about this time wasting as it relates to binging. Like when you binge, you take in too much of something and it turns into a waste, right? And I know you've been there on Netflix. And I want you to think about this for a moment. You sit down in front of Netflix and you're so excited about getting into this new TV series. You start out with episode 1. You start at 9 p.m. at night. And before you know it, you're in episode 12 and you look up and there's a dawn of a new day. Like, where did all those hours go? It could be that you've been there for a week and guys, you have this beard growing. You look like Rip Van Winkle. I mean, you've been there and the time just went past you because you started binging on that new series. It just happens, and it happens in many aspects in our life. Like, for example, surfing on social media or Facebook. All of a sudden, you've wasted an hour just looking at stuff. Or maybe you're on SportsCenter a lot or watching the news for hours on end. Video games, spending hours on hobbies. Again, nothing wrong with this stuff. But it really comes to a point where we need to be asking ourselves, are we binging on these activities? Is the time that we're putting into all this stuff, is it taking away from that which is important? Like, am I exerting my energy and wasting time where I could have been putting that time towards work or my kids, towards family? Maybe I could have put that time to planning towards new opportunities in my life, learning something that I didn't know before, spiritual growth. You know, when it comes to this area, we've got to be careful. Proverbs 13:4 says this, "A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desire of the diligent are fully satisfied." So let's go to the next strength stealer. Piece of strength stealer number 3. We live for the moment. In other words, we live with no plan as to how to spend the time or to live out time moving forward to an optimal return. Like we're just living day by day with no real plan in how we are going to get to another step in life. And I'm not only talking about just working hard day by day, we should do that, but if we only live each day without thinking ahead and being strategic with our time, we'll end up nowhere. It's like aiming with no target. If you aim at no target, you'll miss every time. Here's the problem. When we don't plan and properly allocate, we can lose or even squander our precious time just living to the day, living to the appetite of the moment, living towards the impulse and not thinking ahead. I don't know if you've ever felt this in your life, but one of the things that I've noticed in me, and I'm going to just give you an example, is that going back to the whole money example, normally at the end of the month, I like to go back and look through my account to see what I've spent my money on just to shore up my accounts and my budget. You know, one thing that I hate as it relates to when I do that at the end of the month, when I start seeing this, QT, Dunkin' Donuts, Panda, QT, Dunkin' Donuts. And I see that, I'm like, oh, good grief, what have I done all month long? You know, in the moment of me going into these establishments, I would think, well, I have the money. I mean, I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and follow my appetite and get it right now. It's all cool. But as you begin to look at the total amount over time, living day by day, living by the impulse, not thinking ahead, not saving. As I look at all the money that was spent in a month's time towards these things, I could have maybe bought a yacht or something, right? I mean, we've all been there. Like we think, man, if I would have just saved my money instead of giving on something that's just gone today, well, where would I be now as it relates to my resource? Time is so much like that. Like if all we're doing is living day by day, living to the moment only, and never thinking ahead and being strategic and actually implementing a plan. what happens is that we can look back and think, man, if I'd only started then to think through where I need to be today, I could be in a different place in life. All of us have had those thoughts before. Look at what Proverbs 21:5 says. It says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. We don't need to live by haste and impulse, because it'll get us nowhere fast. Here's one last peace stealer when it comes to strength. Peace stealer number 4, living without purpose. And this is basically just burning our days and giving our time to that which is ultimately matters nothing, or ultimately is meaningless. It's not going to last. It's not important. It's the sense of just living life with a direction. Not necessarily saying that it's not as successful in the world's eye, but to come to a point where you have exerted your energy to know you've come to a place where you still have no peace. It's giving your strength towards something that ultimately doesn't matter. You know, I watched an interview related to Tom Brady. Now, you know who Tom Brady is. He's that famous quarterback. He has 7 Super Bowl rings. Probably many consider him the greatest quarterback that has lived up to this point in professional football. Well, in 2016, he did an interview on 60 Minutes. At that time, he'd only had 3, as I say, only had 3 Super Bowl rings. But you know, as he's being interviewed, the interview comes down to Tom Brady saying this quote. He says, "Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think that there is something greater for me? There's got to be something more than this." And then the host, the commentator, actually asked him, what do you think the answer is? And Tom Brady says, "I wish I knew. I wish I knew." So Tom Brady at the time, he had 3 Super Bowl rings. You would think that he would be fulfilled. He'd reached the culmination of his professional career having 3 Super Bowl rings, but yet he still didn't have peace. And I wonder what it's like for him today, now that he has 7 Super Bowls underneath his belt. Does he have peace today? Does he have a direction, or is he still kind of living without any kind of purpose? There will come a moment in our life where we will assess our life and ask, what is all this for? There's got to be more. We don't want to get to that place. And the reason, and the way that we can move away from that is to make sure that we are living with purpose, that we're living to that which is important. This is why, going back to Psalm 90, verse 12, to Moses' words to God, this is why this is so important. Teach us to number our days. This is what he's asking God. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Moses is asking God, teach me, God, with the time that I have left, teach me what is important. Teach me of where I need to go as it relates to purpose in my life. Teach me what's real. And what is that? Well, it really takes me back to what we said before. What is this purpose that we should be going for? Well, it comes in the great commandment that Jesus gave. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. It really comes down to this equation as it relates to purpose. Loving God plus loving people equals purpose. Loving and living for God, and then loving people and investing in them as it relates to God, God's plan and His purpose, to ultimately equals purpose, because we are investing in that which is eternal. God and people are the only thing that we can invest in which it will last for an eternity. And this is where we find purpose. Hey, next week we're really going to get into some very specific insights to finding peace of strength. But this is what I want to end with today. Do you have this purpose? Have you ever taken a moment just to step back and to think, how are you using your strengths? How are you magnifying your talents and your gifts, your resources, the opportunities that are before you? Ultimately, they have been given to you by God, but how are you leveraging those as it relates to what is important in life? This is where we go back to this question. Are you willing to number your days? This is what I want to ask you as you move into this week. Would you be willing to begin to ask God what is important? to really take a step back and ask God, teach me to number my days that I may gain wisdom. Lord, if in thinking that I have this much time left, what must I do in order to live towards your purpose and to what is important? And allow God to begin to speak to your life in that. Maybe it is adjusting in how you are spending your time. Maybe it's adjusting from being busy in lots of things to choosing what is better than just what's good. Maybe it's putting down an area in our life that we consume a lot of time in order that we may refocus our energy to something that can be lasting and fulfilling. Growing stronger in our strength so that we can be about the purpose in a purpose of God in a better way. Whatever it is, I just want to encourage you this week to ask that of God. God, number my days. And one of the ways that we also find purpose is just seeking out Christ first and foremost in our life. And if you've never done that today, I just want to ask you to do that now. Tell Jesus that you need Him. And as you allow Jesus to take control of your life, help Him to show you the purpose that He has for you. Let's just do that right now. Lord, I come before you today, and I just ask, Father, that you would just be with us, Lord, in this manner. That we would not just be spinning our wheels, staying busy, wasting time, living in the moment, but that, Lord, we would really know our purpose in you. Father, I just pray for anyone that's listening today that has never found you first and foremost in their life. Jesus, that if they've never come to you, that they would start their purpose in life by just knowing the one that gives purpose, and that's you. And if there's someone that's listening right now, God, that just needs to lift up a prayer to you and say, Jesus, I need you. Be my Savior and Lord. I want purpose. I want to live my life for something that I'm created for, and that's you, Jesus. Forgive me of my sins. Help me today to step into your direction, trusting that you're going to lead me in a way of purpose and peace. I give you my life. And I pray all this today in the name of Jesus. I pray today that you've committed your life in some way to God. Maybe it's committing your life to Jesus for the very first time. If you've done that, please let us know. Click the button saying, I've committed to Jesus today. Fill out a connection form so we can walk with you. Also, if you are listening to us today and you're a believer, but you're wanting to take a next step, maybe it's to be a part of our church, or it could be that you want to step forward into more purpose into your life and you want more direction. Please let us know. Fill out a connection card or some information on next step, and we'll get back with you to help you take that next step in your life. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. I pray that you'll move forward, numbering your days, so that God can show you how to best live, purpose, and have peace in your life. I look forward to next week as we continue with Peace of Strength. Have a great day.